What's up, guys? We're back on the Texas Uncensored pod, and today we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and some of their policies for this upcoming election.
So just to start, Kamala Harris had an interview yesterday with CNN, where she and Vice President Tim Walz spoke to Dana Bash about their policies and answered various questions. Um, I would say it was like a pretty mediocre interview. It wasn't that bad, and it wasn't like the most amazing thing in the world. I remember. What are some specific things you remember they asking in that interview?
She asked about Israel Palestine, and I don't know, she reiterated her commitment to defending Israel. I saw some stuff online that was disappointed in her for doing that, because they expected her to be a bit more progressive. Um, but I think that's probably one of the. I think everything else was pretty much what she has said before and what I expected her to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember the Israel thing was she basically was like went into like the Israel thing October 7th, blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
and then like said like they want to make a ceasefire deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the Democratic Party should be more vocally critical of like Netanyahu and like the right wing
Mm-hmm.
government in
Yeah.
Israel because it's like a very easy thing for Democrats to criticize more because like they're like even further right than Donald Trump, you
Yeah.
could say, in many
I
ways.
think I think the reason
Yeah.
they don't is probably because Joe Biden has a relationship with him, and she's trying to
Hmm.
step in place of the administration
Yeah,
because
that's
she's still
fair.
part of even though she's running as a progressive and change
Hmm.
candidate, she is still part of the administration. So it kind of conflicts with her ability to come out and stuff like that.
That's true. And also probably like you criticizing and like the steelman argument for the other side probably is like you vocally criticizing the government that
Hmm.
much probably removes some leverage you have over them
Yeah,
in terms of trying to
that
like
makes sense.
maybe if whatever negotiations they are trying to do, they don't want to like destroy those negotiations
Hmm.
because we've seen like they say like there's about to be a ceasefire deal and then something happens and it kind of goes away and then like every like 2 weeks later there's like another ceasefire deal and then it
Yeah,
bubbles out. So yeah.
it's just a overall unfortunate situation. I think another thing that I remember was she's like, "I'm gonna put a Republican in my cabinet,"
Yeah, she said that too.
which is
Yeah,
why
that's
do
dumb.
that?
Yeah.
You're running against them. You're anyone you choose, unless it's some Mitt Romney type of guy who's a never Trumper. Even then, I don't think there would
Yeah.
be a good force, a force for good in the Kamala Harris campaign. I think that instead of I feel like Democrats always are running scared of their policies and trying to go back toward the center. When I think most people would be in favor of the more progressive policies. I know even the abortion stuff. Democrats have been running on it because it's good for them, but they haven't always run on it, even though it is such a good issue for them compared to Republicans. Um, and they're forcing Republicans now to come back toward the center on that. I don't know if you saw, but there was this recent interview, or I don't know if it's an interview, but the comments on Trump
Yeah.
made
Mm-hmm.
he's oh, 6 weeks is too short. We need and talking about his voting in Florida about the abortion. There's an abortion measure on the ballot this upcoming election. And Donald Trump, he didn't say he would vote for it, but he's
Yeah.
6 weeks is definitely too short. So I think Democrats should be forcing Republicans to come toward the center and not shifting over the center themselves, especially not putting a Republican in the
Yeah, I
cabinet.
agree. I feel like there's too much concessions made by Democrats. Like, yeah, you can hire like Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney, but at the end of the day, on policy matters, their voting record is like basically the same as Trump because like they're all
Mm-hmm.
just conservatives, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't know, like I don't see what use they would have other than just like doing the optics of like reaching out to the other side. And
Yeah.
I mean, even then, like I don't know, like that a swing voter cares about like Mitt Romney or like
Yeah.
some other
And
person.
if you're trying to reach out to their base, they're already locked in with Trump, right? They're not
Yeah,
they're not shift just because you're going toward the center, because Trump is already giving them that, right?
yeah,
He's just copying Trump is not going to give them draw them over, especially on the border policy and stuff, like how at the DNC she said she would sign the border bill. Uh,
yeah,
if she's really trying to win, she should be campaigning for a blue Senate and a blue House, so they can write an actual good border bill
yeah.
that isn't written by a very conservative Republican.
Yeah, that's true. Like that border bill is like it's more conservative than like it's very conservative for Democrats for like the past 20 or 30 years of democratic like immigration policy. Like even the cap on people coming in every day, or like capping the amount of people who come in every day, that's not really a policy that's been in like democratic discourse for a long time. Like in my opinion, I feel like they should just have the processing done faster. There's some elements that are like I don't think that they're that bad. Like I don't think remain in Mexico is like that bad of a policy,
Mm-hmm.
as long as like the person is safe in Mexico. Like it's not going to be the case where somebody flees Mexico, it wants to flee Mexico and is refused entry into the U.S. and has to stay in Mexico to get their claim processed, because that wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like policies like that are fine. I feel like people kind of overblow the border on like mostly on the right, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
also on the left. Like I think like most people, like if you laid down some border policy like on a piece of paper, and it was just like, people can't walk across the border, and then like you process people within like a reasonable time frame. You
Mm-hmm.
if people have to wait for a long time, maybe you try and have them stay in another country before, and not stay in this country for a long time, so it doesn't like
Mm-hmm.
incentivize them to just be here and not show up to their court date.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff like that, I don't think like anyone really disagrees with it, and I don't even think like it should be like that such a big part of the political discourse we have.
But I think it also plays into like some sort
Yeah,
of like xenophobia and racism that some people on the right may feel towards migrants and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that's possible. And it's like I guess it's like just a fear, right? Like so you
Mm-hmm.
have this rhetoric of like people flooding the border. It's kind of bad optically to just like talk against that, and
Mm-hmm.
be in favor of people flooding the border, even though like it's like
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
and even though like America without immigrants would probably be going down right now, like other countries like Japan and Germany, or like especially Japan, like their birth rate is like plummeting, and they have like no immigration, so their society is just getting older and older, and they're eventually not going to be able to support it anymore. But I think
Yeah, I
because
guess
of
like what people would say to that though would be just like they're against illegal immigration, not the
mm-hmm.
legal immigration, which I mean I think is fine. Like I think like at the end of the day, everybody agrees that like to not have illegal immigration, and like
Mm-hmm.
I mean asylum cases should just be processed like in a reasonable amount of time, and
Mm-hmm.
like I don't think like of all the people who came in here and are waiting for the asylum process to go through, like what percentage of those people do you think like actually are asylum seekers? 'Cause, like I don't think a
Do
lot of
you think
them.
most of them are like not actually asylum? They're just like looking for to come to America just cause,
I mean,
or
kind
not
of,
just
because
cause.
like of all the time, like why have this one surge in the past like 1 year, like
Mm-hmm.
of like people, like there was a time where 20,000 people were coming across the border like every day in one
Mm-hmm.
month. So I feel like in that case, then there's probably something else like at play there, right? Like if there's a system that's so backed up, why wouldn't you just come in and like utilize that system? It's not like those people are
Mm-hmm.
criminals or anything, or
Yeah.
like they're committing crimes like in mass, or like
Mm-hmm.
stealing people's jobs. It's just like you have like something you can utilize to take advantage of, and you just take advantage
Mm-hmm.
of it, right?
Yeah, especially since like I guess talking about Kamala Harris as well. She was in charge of the border according to Republicans, but
The
actually like
borders are.
the borders are, but actually was in charge of like talking to these like uh, South American countries where these immigrants are coming from and trying to help them improve their economies and stuff like that, and create and like a stay remain in your own countries like type of thing.
Have you
Which
seen the "Do Not Come" clip?
yeah,
Do
that's an
not come.
incredible clip, but
Uh huh.
it's I think it speaks to the Democrats are able to recognize the problem and obviously take steps to resolve it, but they still go towards the center on border policy because they feel like they can't win with just their own policies. I think.
Yeah, I think like 2020 Democratic platform for immigration was pretty good because it was
Mm-hmm.
more focused on reforming legal immigration
Mm-hmm.
versus like being so obsessed over illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Like they wanted to do immigration. I know like one of Biden's promises that he actually didn't do was like he promised comprehensive immigration reform. And I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you can't really blame him for like not doing it, because like the political will in Congress and stuff is probably not there for that.
Oh yeah,
Especially
not
now,
anymore.
especially now, yeah, because of the border stuff. But that was one of the big topics of discourse in 2020, where they wanted to make it easier for like people who are skilled, or
Mm-hmm.
people who like have like qualifications to like be in the United States, which I think
Yeah,
is like that's like where the discourse should be, not like really with the border. Like they
yeah.
should just figure out how to secure the border, increase the judges, and then just like be done with that. Like that shouldn't be. It should be like the roads. Like you fix the road that when there's a pothole in,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of move on. You don't like rise up as an entire country just to talk about like some roads, potholes in a road,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of the same thing in my opinion. But yeah, what are some of the other Kamala economic policies that you think are like interesting to talk about?
I think the wealth tax is something that she recently proposed, and it's something that I don't think has ever been discussed in America before. I'd like a on like a national scale. I mean, Bernie has probably talked about it before. I don't know for sure, but I think it's an interesting idea. And I was reading a Forbes article about it, and they're over at Forbes. They're a bit scared of the slippery slope of it going down from, because right now it's only at 100. Like if you have over $100 million, you're going to be taxed on the unrealized capital gains that you have. But they're scared that it's going to go down for 20 million, 10 million, 1 million. And eventually everyone's going to be taxed on their unrealized capital gains, which I don't think is realistic.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, especially if you're maybe not 100, even 100 million, I don't know, but definitely above a billion. If you're making more than $1 billion, you don't need that much money. I think everyone can recognize that, especially, and I think that unrealized capital gains should be taxed at some rate.
Yeah, but like, how do you tax it, right?
Yeah,
Like, what does it mean to
I mean,
tax
that's a difficult part, right? Like there's always going to be some valuation dispute, especially with something that doesn't have a set value, like a house or a car or something like that, where you don't know, like you can like have two experts come in and they can disagree on like how much an extra bathroom is worth on the house. And we're back. We're going to continue talking about the wealth tax. Yeah, I know you had
Yeah.
some questions about it.
So what I was saying basically is like, let's say you own a house
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't sold the house, right? So it has a certain value, but you don't have the value in cash.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to take the money from that person? Like, how do you, like, if somebody has $1 million house and you want to tax their unrealized gains,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody has like a holding in a company and it's worth a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you get the government to get the money out of
Or like,
that?
especially if they don't like have that cash liquid or something like that.
Unless you want the government to like seize the portion of like the tax that you want to take from that amount.
I guess, what do people do when they?
Like, what I was thinking is like, it's probably like when you like liquidate
I mean,
the
I
asset,
think
or
you are
like,
taxed on that,
yeah,
but it's not as much
yeah,
as you would. I think taxing on stocks, that makes sense to me. Taxing a house or like a boat or a car or something makes less
yes.
sense because of like that problem, right? But I guess if they're focused on like 100 millionaires, like and like billionaires, it's less of an issue because you're assuming those people will
I mean, we already have
have
property
assets.
taxes, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So property taxes you just have to pay, even though you have to pay it out of your pocket
Mm-hmm.
on the value of your house. So I mean, I guess you could tax it, but yeah,
But
it would be interesting how it's implemented.
I guess living like having a house as a residence,
Yeah,
maybe they would categorize it as different as having
yeah,
house as an investment.
yeah. That's
Because
true.
if you're living in the house, I think you'll pay property tax on it. But maybe if you're having the house as an investment option, you'll have the house you'll be taxed on the house as a capital gains
Mm-hmm.
investment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like, I don't know about all these taxes for like
Mm-hmm.
all like, because those type of taxes would affect like middle class people and people who own like other houses and stuff, right? Like
But, I
upper
mean, but it's
middle
only
class, I
100
guess.
million heirs.
Yeah, but like, I think this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
If the taxes went down all the way to like people who own second homes and stuff, I don't know how I feel about that, but
Especially
I think
people
like
who
this is
like
good.
buy homes as like investments,
Yeah.
like specifically for like when they get older, they can sell the house and stuff like that.
Speaking of homes, there's another
Yes.
policy of hers that she wants to build 3 million new homes during her administration. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's obviously a good thing. The lack of supply is leading to home prices going up, and there's a lot of demand in a lot of areas. I think Texas is one of the most like bubbly states out of all like the United States in terms of home prices, especially in like the suburbs of like where we are, Austin. There's been a huge spike in house prices, even in Dallas, around Dallas. There's also been lots of homes going up, and those prices are very high as well. So I think that while many people are very against building new houses because it'll bring down the price of their own houses, like these NIMBY people,
Yeah.
I think it is a good policy. And I think along with that, I think she's also going to tackle like regulations, which is something I think Trump has also like proposed, probably like deregulating housing, making it easier to build houses,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is also a good thing because there are a lot of places where like communities will take advantage of like environmental regulation laws and other like housing development laws in order to make sure that people can't build new houses or build even apartments like multifamily homes in order to keep their house prices artificially inflated and restrict supply.
That's true. What do you think? Like one question I would have with this
Mm-hmm.
is these policies are cool on the local level. Like if you want to vote in Austin for like administration in Austin to regulate your local
Mm-hmm.
zoning and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, what can the federal government really do incentivized to be
I
building new homes.
guess
Like
I guess
they
it's
can,
like tax breaks, right?
yeah,
Like giving these companies tax breaks, maybe working with local authorities at different levels, maybe like directing like the state governors or like state officials to work with these local authorities to free up housing and like rezone different areas. Maybe they're probably focused on like big metropolitan
yeah,
areas, like big cities where there's more visible impact and there's more demand, like especially around like places like Austin, like big cities like New York and Chicago and stuff, where housing is so much more expensive that you need to have some step in from the federal government. Also, along with that, she's also proposing $25,000 down payment to new home buyers. What do you think of that one?
I mean, I don't. I think that's kind of a gimmick policy, only
Mm-hmm.
because like people that the market of houses would just reflect that $25,000 being added into everyone's pockets,
But it's
right?
not like everyone is buying a
I
new
mean,
house,
I
right?
guess even new people. Like
Yeah.
I don't know that like that's more of a policy. That's more of the policy. Like I mean, people who are going to get an immediate handout, they're obviously going to like the policy.
Mm-hmm.
But like, does that alleviate the underlying problems that cause like home prices to be so high, or
Mm-hmm.
like there to be such a low market of new homes and apartments for people to rent out?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Like I think what people really need to focus on in home buying is the federal government could be providing like tax breaks or like incentives, like you said, or they can pass a bill that gives like funding to like local municipalities to review like all of their regulations and stuff. But I think like if you want to fix housing policy, you need to work in the local level. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
more involved in your like city or town's
Mm-hmm.
politics, and try and like work to like get rid of a lot of these zoning laws, or
Yeah.
like remove like the power of like these HOAs and like these groups of
Mm-hmm.
people from like who don't want like apartment buildings near their homes or something like that.
Yeah, but I guess the
Yeah,
problem is like the most motivated
yeah,
people are also the
yeah,
wealthiest and stuff like
exactly.
that, who have like the extra time to be able to put into
Yeah,
making sure the policies stay the way they are. Whereas like working people, like they're busy all day, then they come home, they're tired from work, they don't
yeah,
have like the energy or the will to go out to like some random meeting,
yeah. That's true.
and do the work to get these housing policies changed, which is why I think maybe that's where the federal government comes in and
Yeah.
provides them with a little bit of help.
Or yeah, I mean, you could also say like local politicians who they vote for
Mm-hmm.
could
Yeah,
try and
should do
work on
more.
those problems too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess housing is one avenue. Another avenue of common ground actually with Trump and Kamala Harris is that they want to stop the like those big buyers from buying up homes
Mm-hmm.
and building like buying
Yeah,
or
private
building
equity.
out homes in mass, like private equity firms,
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of inflating the prices for people, regular people who want to buy homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in like buying out like entire neighborhoods where they know that there's high demand and like artificially like restricting supply and making sure that or like doing or I think also HOAs are a big part of this as well, where they artificially raise home prices by like making sure everyone like maintains like the strict like house like a house
Mm-hmm.
supposed to look like lawn and all that other stuff, where
Mm-hmm.
it's an unnecessary cost because you also have to pay into the HOA. It's an
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary cost on top of an already inflated housing market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess HOAs are kind of like in my opinion, a tertiary or secondary problem to
Mm-hmm.
like the actual like deciding to build what in what place.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think like if an HOA wants to have control over like all the people who live in it, and everybody like decides to buy a house and they decide to like pay the HOA, they want to have a pool or whatever, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's they can have their individual complaints with the HOA, but they shouldn't that group of people shouldn't be preventing like an apartment condominium or apartment building being built somewhere else
Yeah,
because like it's near them, right? So like
that
I feel
makes
like that's
sense.
kind of undue power that they have, and like these like city zoning regulations,
Mm-hmm.
like they're so like stringent that like you can only build like these certain stores near these single family homes, and if you want to build like a strip mall, you had to like build it in like this other area.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these kind of restrictions, they're not only like they're adding like more money and more stuff that people have to think about when
Mm-hmm.
deciding where to build stuff. They're also like they're not good for like your social cohesion and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
But
but most suburbs aren't good
yeah,
for social
yeah,
cohesion. That's like the one of the big problems of America is like the lack of public transportation.
yeah,
But I guess another thing that Kamala Harris and Trump both agree on is like no tax on tips. At least Trump came out with it, and then
yeah.
like
Kamala
not
took
even a
that
week
I guess.
later, Kamala just says
Yeah.
the same thing, which I think this is kind of like a band aid like
Mhm.
bad policy overall. Like sure, it might be helpful for tipped workers, but even in the restaurant industry, like cooks and like dishwashers and all the people who don't interface with customers, they're paid almost like they're paid the same rate, but they don't actually make tips. So
Yeah.
they come out worse off at the end of the day, especially since if workers aren't being forced to pay tips. That's just something else the business can just load off onto the customers. Because I bet if this goes through, we'll see price like wages of like worker of tipped workers like fall, and the tips being forced to make up the difference. Like a very heavily suggested like 20%, 30%
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah. Another thing with that is like I kind of see it the same as the $25,000 for home
Mm-hmm.
buyers. It's kind of like a gimmick. It's like a money. It's like a money grab policy where
Mm-hmm.
you're giving somebody something that they're immediately going to get a benefit of. So they instinctively want that policy. Like
Mm-hmm.
they instinctively want more money, but you're not thinking about like the bigger problem there. Like what's the
Mm-hmm.
bigger problem with like why do you even want the policy of no tax on tips?
Have
Right.
you like felt that there's been like a rise in tipping lately?
Yeah, of course. Like you go to like a machine and the machine will ask you for like a 20% tip.
Yeah.
Or in the airport, there'll be like some self checkout kiosk and it says, "Do you want to tip 23% or 29%?"
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Especially like if you're going to like I get it in like some
Yeah.
fast food places, like maybe you're helping support the workers there,
Yeah.
but especially at like retail places, I don't think there's a room for tip. But I think if this comes through and there is no tax on tips, I think you're going to see a lot more places that do have tax on tips. Like let's say you're going out and you're buying like a basketball hoop or something, and then they'll be like, oh, it's $5, but $40
I
tip.
mean, they already tip. You already can like at the register at Dick's Sporting Goods. There's probably a place to tip already,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, but it'll be like most of the cost will be in tips because it's
yeah,
untaxed uh for the workers, so that you're making the um the owners pay them even less,
yeah, that's
and they
true.
can like because wages are most of the cost of most businesses that have a lot of waged employees. I think because they're like because you have to treat them better than you can treat like objects.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like the either of them would actually do that, like putting
Hmm.
no tax on tips. Like, how would you implement that? That would be
I
kind
mean,
of
most
interesting.
taxes. I'm pretty sure most like if it's a cash tip, it's already
Yeah,
not taxed, right?
yeah,
Because you just don't report it. But I guess it's mostly about like credit card tips and stuff like that.
that's fair. Let's see. Another one of Kamala's policies, I guess, she wants to expand the. Oh, she wants to add price controls for the
Hmm.
grocery prices. What do you think about that
I
policy?
think I'm not sure exactly if it's price controls. I mean,
I mean,
it's like sounds like
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
it's price controls,
They
but
say it's
yeah,
price controls. It's like banning price gouging. I think I've read that it's been implemented in some states, especially for the purpose of like disaster relief. You're not supposed to be able to raise prices
yeah,
on people who are looking to maybe buy a shovel after a snowstorm. You're not supposed to jack up prices on them. You're supposed to keep it the
yeah,
same price. So I think that, but unlike that, feel like food and grocery costs are a bit less easy to discern whether or not it's true price gouging or whether it is just the cost of the business that is going through.
mm-hmm.
Because although grocery prices have been rising, inflation has been going around a lot, and I don't think you can just attribute that to corporate greed because there is inflation in
Yeah,
other
that's
countries as
true.
well, and it's worse in the United States. The United States has, I think, had the best of it in this past
Yeah,
few years because of how strong our economy is, how strong the dollar is on the world stage. So I think that price controls, I think they are a good policy, but they like most of Kamala's policies, I think they're a band-aid policy and they're not. But I think one of Kamala's good policies is that she wants to increase the corporate tax rate again. Because right now it's 20%. I think she wants to take it to
yeah,
29%. That is a good policy, and that does get the hard problem of corporations taking too much in profit and like raising prices artificially. I think that would do a lot more to help than price controls for groceries because I think that would lead to, while it would be good for in the short run, price controls are not in the long run. I don't think they're an effective
yeah,
policy. Just like rent control is not an effective policy because it just
yeah,
artificially restricts supply. Because if people know that they're going to be paid less for building new buildings,
yeah,
they're just not going to build those new buildings, and there's just going to be no supply anyway.
yeah.
Even if the policy is good intentioned, it I think you need to increase supply so that it can meet demand rather than artificially restricting the prices.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. I think the grocery trying to do what you can to control the grocery prices is a good idea because it
Hmm.
impacts so many people. Like even
Yeah,
if whether you make a little amount of money or you make a lot, you can
yeah.
see that as a difference, I
I
guess.
mean, theoretically, the U.S. already
Yeah,
does this with a lot of different foods. Like
yeah,
we subsidize milk production, we subsidize
yeah,
corn production because it's in the interest of national security.
and we have like
So
food reserves too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
we could, in theory, shift some of this subsidies away from like milk and soybeans and corn and put it into other staples that Americans need. Like eggs have risen a lot in price. I think that, or even removing the subsidies altogether, which would bring down the prices because we like dump out so much milk. We have like little caves full of cheese because we have so much milk lying around.
yeah,
That leads to just making the cheese and putting these caves. So I think that increasing the supply uh, by forcing these farmers to like put this food on the market and just the government just buying and putting it on the market could also work, but I'm not actually sure how it would.
that's
Um,
fair. Um, moving on to Trump's
mhm.
policies, what do you what do you think are one of the biggest Trump policies that uh,
I mean, I think
people
a
have been
lot of
talking
people have
about?
heard about Project 2025,
Yeah.
even though he has disavowed it. Um, who believes him? Not me. That's who. Uh, I think that if it's written by 75% of your advisors, and it includes a lot of policies that Republicans have been working on, and it's written by the Heritage Foundation, which Trump did follow 60% of the Heritage Foundation's mandate for leadership in
Yeah.
2016. So he has a proven track record of following what these people say, and a lot of his old employees also have worked on it. I think he is going to do it, and they have a lot of terrible policies in there. But some of the other policies he's also talked about is like lowering the corporate tax rate again. He doesn't. I think that our corporate tax rate is already too low. I
Mm-hmm.
think it definitely like we're definitely losing a lot of money. I think the U.S. is in a position right now where I don't think we can afford to cut taxes, especially since we're coming to the end of like a long debt cycle, and they're like the interest payments are just going to keep piling up if we keep um, like paying taxes, especially since we our rates are at the highest they've been in many years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna like all those bills are gonna come due eventually, and we're gonna have to pay them. And yeah, unless we like have the money for it, I like obviously asking the like thinking about the deficit and balancing the budget is like a kind of like a old Republican trope. But I think Trump has like basically just removed that from the Republican
Yeah.
policy altogether. I think it is something that Democrats could claim, especially since Trump was talking about doing these tax cuts.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, and the
What?
tariffs as well.
Yeah, one of the specific things he wanted to do was he wanted to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like under the current benefits, they say that people are required to pay taxes on like 50 to 85
Yeah,
percent.
50 to 8%,
Yeah.
5% of your like total Social Security. If you make over a certain amount of money because you have other income from like investments or like dividends, something like that, then you are required to pay taxes. But I mean, I think this is just giving more money to old people who
Hmm.
are Trump's main voter base.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, it's like the Kamala Harris $25,000 one, but
mhm,
like the
yeah,
opposite, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about the idea of raising the Social Security like cap? I mean, the cap on the
The
taxable
age.
income for
Oh yeah,
Social Security.
I think that's a good
Yeah.
policy. I think it came at a time when America was like coming out of the Great Depression. Obviously, like, I don't think there was that many people that had that much money, so it was more like incentivizing people. Like once you make this much money, it's all yours. But I think we've gone past those days, and I think it's time that we raise the barrier because although the nominal amount has stayed the same, like we've had inflation, which has then made so that that nominal amount is like less than it used to be. So I think at least pegging the cap to inflation might be a good
Hmm.
thing. Uh,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's like nowadays there's no reason for there to be a limit on
Hmm.
the amount of income you earn that can be taxed to Social Security. Like the more income you pay towards it, the more benefits that all people would just get back at the
Hmm.
end, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like since Social Security is such a popular program right now, like with Trump and Kamala Harris like defending
Hmm.
it so rigorously,
Yeah.
like I feel like if Kamala wins, she should seize on this opportunity to like expand the benefits of Social Security and
Yeah.
like protect it from, I guess, collapsing, which
Yeah,
people always say is going to happen, but maybe it
I
probably,
mean,
yeah,
I've
yeah, it
read like
probably
things
will.
that
Yeah,
in like 2030, like 2035, it's gonna collapse. It's gonna
yeah,
go bankrupt, which I don't think that's gonna happen. Like Congress will step in and do something
yeah,
about that. But it is important to like think about these problems now rather than waiting until like the last year to even think about fixing it. Um, I think that they're also like things that senior citizens have that they also should move down to lower ranks like Medicare and Medicaid,
yeah.
like these senior citizen programs.
Hmm.
Once they stop working, because uh, most health insurance is tied to employment, but once you're unemployed, you need your own health insurance, which is why the government steps in. But I think that um, the government should slowly lower that age
Yeah,
bracket until we have socialized medicine, because I think that's like an easy
Medicare
way
for
to do it.
all.
Yeah, Medicare for all. I think that's an easier way to do it than like passing a bill, like doing it all at once, like making sure that the system can take care of
Yeah,
it. But that's like a I don't think any politician is really talking about this besides like Bernie
yeah.
Sanders and like the progressive
Not now. Maybe in
caucus. But
2020.
yeah, but I think
Yeah,
another policy that Trump proposed is like 20% tariffs on everything,
yeah.
which is
That's
I think
horrible. That's the
crazy.
dumbest idea you could ever have. Yeah,
Yeah.
because as we know with Trump's tariffs 1.0 with the steel,
Hmm.
the Chinese steel, tariffs are just passed on to the people who are buying the products.
Hmm.
They're going to be passed down to Americans, not to the Chinese or not to like any other country. And this is reflected in the steel industry in America today, which like there's a lot of people there who supported Trump in the past, and after these policies got enacted, they have come out like they showed some of these
Hmm.
videos at the DNC actually where these tariffs like made their jobs harder and made like destroyed their industry because
Hmm.
like their steel production was like it was getting hampered, or like not their steel production
Hmm.
but like the steel industry, the prices were getting way too expensive for that.
Yeah, and like I think along with this, Trump said he would eliminate income taxes as and have tariffs as a replacement source of revenue for
For
the
income
government.
taxes,
Yeah, like yeah, I think that was like his idea.
I didn't even hear
He's
that.
I don't know if he's still going through with that, but I mean that's why he was like proposing raising tariffs. He's like tariffs will like make up for like or maybe not eliminate income taxes, but lower income taxes drastically for average Americans and have these tariffs fill in. But I feel like it's like kind of a regressive tax, much like
Yeah,
a like sales tax is a regressive tax because it hits poor families more.
yeah.
So this will also hit poor families more than richer families because they'll be able to import their own things, or they'll simply buy it, and it won't be as affected. It won't affect them as much because it's like a flat percentage of income, instead of like scaling up with different income levels.
I mean, yeah, like it's a pretty obvious argument with tariffs. Like, if you want to look at what tariffs do for a
Hmm.
country, you should just look at any one of the countries that have had tariffs in the past or that have them now, right? Like,
Hmm.
India, for example. If you want to buy an iPhone in India, it's like what, like 60% more expensive.
Hmm.
So like you go on like the like Flipkart or whatever the website that they have there, you search up an iPhone and it's like 1.6
Hmm.
times the price it is here because India has huge tariffs.
Yeah.
Another thing with that was I remember like they were trying to sell Teslas in India,
Hmm.
and like they came out to the figure that if you were going to sell like the Model 3 car in India, instead of being like 35K or 40K, it was going to be like 80K, or like double the
Because of
price because of
tariffs.
the import tariffs that India has, like that are so high. So I mean, I think it's one of these proven facts that we've come to conclusions that we've come to after like the entire 20th century that tariffs are like an outdated like concept, and like free trade is
Hmm.
definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
It's just about getting good free trade agreements so that you benefit both countries.
Yeah.
Like we have, I guess, USMCA is kind of like a free trade agreement that's pretty beneficial to all three countries, or
Hmm.
what it was before, which is NAFTA.
Yeah.
So I think we should focus on expanding these free trade agreements. We should focus on getting more countries to like bring more countries into the like globalized economy,
Hmm.
bringing more countries into having more free trade agreements with more countries, and I think that would benefit people of the United States and in the
Yeah.
other countries too.
I
So
think also as part of like on the topic of tariffs, I think you contribute some part of the world wars to like increasing isolationism because of
yeah,
tariffs. Like people always like to mention the Spoon-Hawley tariff in the 19th century or the 20th century, and how that led to drastic like isolationism from America because everything else was so much more expensive. I think that um, because but even now we're such an interconnected global economy that the tariffs like even if they're for the benefit of American consumers, they still hit us hard because of how interconnected everything is.
yeah,
Um, but I think also on the other side of that, there's also the idea that China is like doing unfair trade practices,
yeah,
like flooding the economy with like cheap Chinese made stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to a story about like a solar panel company that wanted to like set up in America, but they were just priced out of like the world because China was just producing it so much cheaper and so much more effectively because they have like government subsidies and they already had like the facilities up and running.
What do you think about the argument that that's just China doing well, and like
Uh,
America doesn't like that?
I mean, I think there's a good argument for that, especially in like consumer products. But I think that the people who talk about national security and the importance
Mm-hmm.
of like having like semiconductors on on your like in America or like like other important like technologies of the 21st century in America, I think that's also an important thing to consider,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially uh, since that China controls so much of like global trade in other ways, like China controls like
Yeah.
something of like 60% of the like raw the supply chain for like some raw materials and uh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I think in terms of China and countries like that, there's definitely like we do. On one hand we have free trade and we have
Mm-hmm.
these like fair, good faith agreements with other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like there is something like there's in the idea of a tariff, like the bigger idea,
Mm-hmm.
which is like trying to protect your country's consumers and trying
Mm-hmm.
to like have a fair playing field for your
Mm-hmm.
country. Like I think there's merit to that because like of the things you said with China
Mm-hmm.
and their exploitative practices around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, I think like if entering a free trade agreement with a country is not just like you can sell us stuff and we can sell you stuff. It's more about like your the interest the having the interest of the other country and
Mm-hmm.
having the interest of your country like both be working together
Like
in that
creating a
kind of way.
balance between
Yeah,
them. I think that's important.
and like
uh
there's obviously like certain things industries and stuff where you do want a bit more protectionism. You want your country to be more self-sustaining, like energy production or like food
mm-hmm.
production, like so like basic core things that you don't want to be relying on someone else with. Like now we're seeing with Europe and how they made the mistake of getting Russian gas,
Mm-hmm.
and how that affects their energy prices.
Yeah.
It definitely is good to like be energy independent. It's good to be like food independent so you don't have to like
Mm-hmm.
import food. Like when Ukraine went into war and their like grains and stuff stopped
Mm-hmm.
going to like countries, it disproportionately affected countries like like African countries and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't like they that was their main source of food.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's fair. I think that along the same line, I think that Europe, America has a role to play in Europe, especially since we we are supporting Ukraine so much. I think that America should also be working with Europe to establish like better national defense.
yeah,
Especially, I think we should also take a page out of Europe's like book and like reestablish nuclear plants, especially since Germany they shut down their nuclear plants and they relied on Russian oil, and now they're in the situation they are
hmm
right now. I think America should take a step forward into the this like new age and like actually embrace nuclear energy. I think it's a big problem that uh, we after like 3 Mile Island and other incidents, we just stopped completely, even though the technology is so good. And
yeah,
even now, I know there's like some investments going into it, but I think that Kamala Harris or like some Democrat on the national stage should really take this into account because even though like some progressive Democrats are against it
yeah.
for like because of the chance of pollution and
What
the
pollution is there from
I
nuclear?
mean it's the
I mean, they
the,
have
the radiation
yeah
like
they have.
spills, right?
I mean, not radiation, but the actual
Mm-hmm.
waste that it generates.
Yes, it's pretty
I'm
small.
pretty sure it's like not that much at
Yeah,
all.
but it's like
Yeah.
the idea of like it being a like
Oh yeah,
like
nuclear
nuclear
explosion or whatever.
fallout
Yeah.
is very dangerous. I think that taking that step forward is another policy that I would like the Democrats to put on the table.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing with the nuclear thing is I heard that like one of the biggest like preventers of the nuclear energy industry from growing is the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. Like
Mm-hmm.
apparently like the amount of licenses that they've given out to like these nuclear
Mm-hmm.
plants to like build new plants, like they're like incredibly stringent on that, and like they
Mm-hmm.
basically like never give out any licenses for people to be able to build nuclear plants even if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like there might be some room for like some bipartisan like ship to take a look at that agency and see if like they're being a bit too regulatory or
Mm-hmm.
too strict on like building out this infrastructure for the United States.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I think that's a good discussion on Kamala Harris and Trump. I think we can move on to
Okay.
a local Democrat in Texas,
Yeah.
Colin Allred. who we, I guess, are working to support right now.
Yes.
Um, if you can.
And yeah, Colin Allred, he's a Texan. He used to be an NFL player, and he's from Dallas, Texas, born and raised. He's running to beat Ted Cruz in the Senate, and he has like a pretty decent chance, I want to say, only because his polling with Ted Cruz and like the past two polls and like a couple polls before that has been like within
Mm-hmm.
five to like 5 to 2 to 5 points,
Mm-hmm.
very close to Ted Cruz, which is like it's likely that I mean, it's possible. It's likely that Ted Cruz would still win if I like my
Yeah.
instinct just says that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's possible that he can win if like Democratic turnout is like
Yeah.
actually like good.
Especially
Which
since there's
yeah,
there's so many Democrats in the state of Texas, especially now
yeah,
after so many have moved from California, that I think it is like maybe Texas turning blue is a fantasy that won't happen for like another like 50 years if it happens ever. But I think there is a chance that we can vote in a Democratic senator that will actually like hear the interests of the people instead of just Ted Cruz is like one of the least like senators of all time. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure.
Even by
Like,
Republicans too.
yeah, like no one likes him. I used to listen to his podcast. He's like terrible at that too. Um, like I don't understand why Texans like him so much, especially since he's not even a real Texan.
Canadian.
Yeah, he's a Canadian Cuban. He's a Cuban-born Canadian. His
He's
so I
born in Cuba.
no,
Oh,
he's Cuban
Cuban,
immigrants
Canadian
parents.
born Cuban.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
yeah, yeah,
terminology is, but
yeah.
yeah,
He's I feel like that Colin Allred represents what Texas is. He's from Texas. He has a good work ethic. He has a good work ethic and a long history of being for Texas, especially in the House of Representatives. He's passed a number of different bills that have brought money back to Texas. So I think that, and looking at his policies, they seem pretty standard Democrat, which is all right for the current era. And I'm hoping it'll be good in Texas too, because I understand that since it's probably a less progressive place, there's less room to really push for very progressive measures when you're running for election in
yeah.
Texas.
Like two things there. One is like I definitely want to agree with your point where when you're running in somewhere like Texas as a Republican, or if you're running in somewhere like Connecticut as a Repub or Texas as a Democrat or Connecticut as a Republican, you need to make some concessions on your like party platform positions.
Mm-hmm.
So like in Texas, you probably can't be like super. You probably can't avoid the conversation about the border. You probably have to be like pretty like center right on the border, meaning like
Mm-hmm.
you have to like you want to support a strong border, you want to have like strong rhetoric against like
Mm-hmm. Illegal
securing the
immigration.
border and stuff, and like issues like guns, where
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of Texans are very pro gun,
Mm-hmm.
including like moderate Texans and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to kind of balance the ground there, between like having some common sense gun regulations, but having whatever pro gun regulation rhetoric you can manage to have without being super hawkish on it. I think that's one of the big mistakes Beto O'Rourke made.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember in one of the debates, he had this like impassioned speech about how he was like so excited that he was gonna like confiscate. He's just like, I'm gonna take your AR-15. I'm gonna take your 30 round magazines. Yeah, I'm gonna take your whatever. And whatever you think about these policies, having like such an impassioned speech in that direction, it's very unappealing to states like Texas, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that it's like very wise to be doing something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you want to do on the issue, because at the end of the day, like having like a small move to the left is better than having no move to the left, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I
Yeah,
think I definitely believe in like in progressivism and like making sure that we take steps to go towards where we need to be, because I think that passing like large bills that'll like suddenly cause a revolution in the United States is like very unlikely and probably will never happen. And it probably wouldn't be good anyway, because I think that the system and the people need time to adjust
yeah,
to like the current like normal, or the current new normal, and like the new ways of doing things.
yeah,
I think this is where also like a lot of people on the left like sometimes maybe go too far, like especially if they're from very liberal places or they're in very liberal spaces. They'll
yeah,
often push for a thing like social policy or economic policy that is just way out of the frame of most Americans. That they, especially for like low information people who maybe don't spend all the time online, don't listen to the news as often as other people, where they'll hear something and they'll be like, "What? Where did this come from?" And they don't have like the context to back it up. Even though I think that there are a lot of good progressive voices, I think Bernie has been like one of them that has been very consistent over time, and he's brought a lot of like messages like Medicare for all and other policies into like the national coverage because of how consistent he has been with it, and he's really pushed the Democrats in that way. And I think there's a lot of room for those spaces, like people in those spaces. But I think in Texas, especially as a very red state currently, I think that people need to take a step to meet people where they are instead of like coming off as so like in their ivory tower.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like going even further than that, I think like yeah, I would have a position that's probably more progressive, but I don't think like there's necessarily a problem with like most Texans being like to the right a bit of me,
Mm-hmm.
or like maybe Texas is not going to be as left wing on certain policies, even like
Mm-hmm.
if we had an accurate representation of every person in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think like it's important to be content with that and be fine with that because at the end of the day, that's the idea of America, right? Like we have all
Mm-hmm.
these different states, we have different governments, we have federalism. Like the idea of federalism is so
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in our system of governance that we should be able to tolerate the fact that different states have different policies and different views on
Mm-hmm.
issues. And what I would say with the state of Texas is that I think like for a lot of issues like Medicare for all
Mm-hmm.
or increasing the minimum wage or expanding or at least like just expanding the healthcare benefits to match like what the
Mm-hmm.
federal government is available to give you. Like right now, they don't Texas doesn't expand Medicare and Medicaid. So there's money from the federal government that is already allocated to Texas that Texas just doesn't take and doesn't implement to expand their
Mm-hmm.
healthcare policies just because it's like a democratic idea. When
Yeah.
other states like South Carolina or
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania or like other like purple and even red states, they have taken this money and they have used it because at the end of the day, it does help the people there, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
they're Republicans or not or Democrats. And then another great example in Texas of this would be like the infrastructure bill that they passed.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Cruz was one of the people who spoke very highly against it. Ted Cruz was one of the people who like flamed it and like flamed Biden for having that. Same with Greg Abbott, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when the money comes into Texas, which it did, and when people are expanding, like when they expand I-35, when they
Mm-hmm.
have the money to start looking into that high-speed rail that they're planning from
Mm-hmm.
Dallas to Houston, like all of the money for that comes from this bill. And I think that once Texans realize that like they're being scammed in the way that these people who vote against these bills claim credit for all of these policies that they don't even want
Yeah.
to happen in their state, like that's like those are things that can cause a change in the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is more important to focus on than trying to like cram in every single progressive far left policy
Mm-hmm.
into everyone's head and like expecting them all to like agree on that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I guess that's a call and all read,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a good wrap for our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for watching, and we will be back. This season of Texas Uncensored will have a lot of great
Guess.
guests and topics, and we have the
Mm-hmm.
election coming up. So stay
Yeah.
tuned and like and subscribe.
Yes. And follow for more.